Grüezi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, fantastic to be here. And Hans-Peter, thank you very much for that introduction. How many of you here in the audience use social lubrication? Nobody? Maybe the interpreter knows how to use social lubrication. Social lubrication, how many of you have sent an email? How many of you use Flickr? How many of you use iTunes? That's social lubrication, because social lubrication lubricates social media. How many of you here today are social broadcasters? Only two? I can't believe that. Social broadcasting is when you take a picture, a video, a clip, a piece of music, your thinking, your thoughts, and you send it on. You are broadcasting. So this is really making things completely different, and especially so if you're in the music business. I'm pleased to say that I've recently been doing some work with two well-known artists. I'm going to talk about one in particular during the course of this presentation. One is Lady Gaga, and the other is Madonna. And also I've done some work recently with U2, the Irish band. But I'm particularly interested in new forms of music and how we can use new technology and new ideas to really get things going. So, how many of you here believe that innovation is an important part of the music business? Good. So does that mean innovation of songs, innovation of writing, innovation of technology that you're using it? I mean, it's incredible when you think about it. Spotify is less than 3 years old. Spotify just started in Germany 2 weeks ago. Doing well. Okay, so enough of social lubrication. Enough of social media. Let's have a look at some interesting ways in which hopefully you'll get some ideas that can help you with your music and with your technology. How many of you here play in a band? How many of you here are on the technology side of entertainment? How many of you here are music publishers? Not one, just one in the back there, a little music publisher. So, how many of you here are concert promoters? And how many of you here manage talent? Nobody. What's going on, Switzerland? Wake up. Okay, well, let's have a look and see what we can come up with. My name is Ralph Simon. No, I'm not Harry Potter's father. Might look like it, but I'm not. But yes, I am a screenager. Not a teenager, a screenager. How many of you here are screenagers? Oh, come on. Every single one of you. You know why? You know why you're a screenager? A screenager, not a teenager, a screenager. Because you're going for the best screen available. Here's a gentleman reading his iPad while he's listening. Very good. He can do two things at once, chewing gum and walking at the same time with his iPad and listening at the same time. Just think about it. New research has just come out to show that what you can effectively do, or what people do now when they watch television at home, is they're looking at their tablet, or they're looking at their mobile phone, or they're looking at all three. And if you're under the age of 24, it's quite possible that you will be looking at all three because you're a screenager. So, what do screenagers do, and how does it come about? What can screenagers do for the music business, for the entertainment business, for creating interesting new things that people really love to be able to learn about? You know, Steve Jobs, the interesting thing about Steve Jobs was that he loved music. He loved calligraphy, the art of writing, but he loved music. He loved music. And when he died, you know which artists he got to play at his funeral? He'd arranged it before he died. Anybody know? Coldplay, Norah Jones, and Norah Jones sang a Bob Dylan song called Forever Young. How many of you have heard that song by Bob Dylan? It's quite old, but it's got a fantastic lyric. But Steve Jobs always believed that you should have a great experience on the screen. How many of you bought the new iPad 2 weeks ago that just came out? I see there's on the Hauptbahnhof, just near the station at the new Apple store here in Zurich. No one got it? Okay, well, let's have a look at what screenagers do and are. These are people of the screen. So if you look up there, see that little guy in the middle with the one laptop per child that was developed by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that also have done some great work on electronic music, on MP3s and all of that kind of thing. If you have a look on the left, the top left, someone is reading a screen through their glasses because they've got a little projector just right in there that then puts it onto the screen. Incredible. Can you imagine if you're a songwriter and you put a record out and someone can read the lyrics of your song in their glasses? That's pretty neat. It looks like it's science fiction, no? It's not. It's real. It's been happening for 2 years already in Korea. See that picture bottom left there? If I told you that was a conductor who was conducting a choir of 2,000 people singing on the internet, what would you say? True or false? Are these people alive here, Hans-Peter?
Give him a beer.
True. It's true. That guy got people to sing, and then he got them all to basically stream in onto the same streaming platform where he was effectively conducting a global choir, 2,000 voices. Now you think, a global choir, 2,000 voices, where does that come from? Well, it comes from the fact that innovation and technology is leading or helping to lead creativity. So, we'll show you the picture on the bottom right there is from Amsterdam, which we'll come to in a minute. But let's go and have a look at some interesting things. Here's a statement. It's pretty straightforward. It's true, actually. So we've got access to more media technology than ever before. Someone was telling me that in the movie business, no longer will you have to get these big cans that take the prints from cinema to cinema. The digital cinema is now going to mean that movies will be just sent by digitally to cinemas here in Switzerland, all over Europe, and in fact it'll be better for the producers because it means there'll be less piracy. And piracy is a very, very big problem for the music business because let's face it, are there any musicians in the world that are wealthier than Bill Gates? Why not? Because a lot of the music is being stolen and many, many musicians who do great work, play great instruments, or play well. Today, it's not so easy for a musician to earn the kind of living that, say, someone like a Paul McCartney or somebody like Bono would make, although the reason that Bono is so successful is that first and foremost, Bono is a great songwriter. He and The Edge just write some great, great songs. Okay, so this we know. 1996, just 16 years ago, probably this is what happened in every house in Switzerland. And now, just 15 years later, look at the difference just in your personal private space with innovation and technology. It's funny, I was reading this magazine. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, Fast Company. It's actually very good if you like innovation and technology for music and for creativity. So this guy here, do you know who he is? I bet you've used his technology in some form. This is the guy that invented Twitter. Well, with two of his friends, of course. Jack Dorsey. You know, he's worth $10 billion today because he came up with the idea of tweeting. So how many characters do you think there are in a tweet? 160, actually, but you use 140. So some clever guy in Boston came up with the idea to say, how can I put a link to get some music inside a tweet? How can you get a link inside a tweet? What would you do to get the link inside the tweet? He said, well, 160 characters, I have to use 140, but what about the other 20? maybe I can have a special code that can write a URL that will then take me to the song so that when I send a tweet, I can send a song. Send a tweet makes it neat. It's pretty good, no? So this is what they say about innovation. Design is a competitive advantage. Copycats are history. So in the music business, people try and copy to try and make something sound like something else. Let's record this because it's kind of like Nicki Minaj. It's kind of like Jay-Z. With technology, you've got to really be original. And that's so great because you know what's good about that? Switzerland is a smart country. There are great creative people here in Switzerland. Just think about the technology that's developed in Switzerland. And I'm not just talking about Sprungli and the technology to make that kind of confectionery, but Switzerland should be a fantastic place for entertainment technologies. In fact, there are a couple of, the guy who heads up Google's mobile, kind of like their special laboratory, is actually a Swiss guy. Daniel Graf, very well known. He started working at Swisscom, believe it or not. He was in a desk every morning. He'd go in, he'd say, oh, this Swisscom is driving me crazy. I can't stand this old-style Swiss company. They're not really like that, but some parts of Swisscom are like that. And Daniel Graf went to live in Silicon Valley. He's now running Google's main mobile lab, and he's very interested in hearing from Swiss thinkers and creatives who have got some interesting ideas. So if anyone wants to contact Daniel, speak to me after this little presentation. He's a good guy. He wants to do things for Switzerland in Silicon Valley. So just imagine, he could have stayed at Swisscom. And there he is hanging out with Sergey Brin and Larry Page. But we're digressing from the story because what you see above on that screen, we've got to add these. Look at all of those. So if you are sitting there at home watching TV and playing with your screens and you're a screenager, you've got to think about all of these different things. But the most important thing is just what that screen is saying right there. Your role is becoming much more proactive, not passive. Your mother and father and your grandparents would sit in front of the TV like this, and they'd wait for the TV to just basically do something to them. Today, it's a two-way connection where you'll be sending tweets, maybe with some music in it, and you will be really making sure that it was an active participant, not passive. How many of you have actively sat in front of the TV while you're sending a text message and looking at an iPad at the same time? You got 3 hands? Is that how you do it? I tried that once with my girlfriend. I was tweeting. She said, listen, 1 o'clock in the morning while we're making love, that's not the time to start tweeting. She's right. Okay, so here are some figures we'll just take you through quickly. Everyone knows this, 2000, 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And now, just at the end of last year, actually 5.5 billion mobile phones around the world. 5.5 billion. So listen to this. How many of you have ever made, produced, or been in a music video? Okay, so about 2 years ago, a company started in America called Vevo, V-E-V-O. They said that MTV was really not what it used to be. Why don't we just start a channel for music videos? Yay! All the record companies said, that's a good idea, but who is going to want to watch music videos on a special channel when they can watch it on the web, they can watch it on YouTube, they can watch it all over the place? In 2 years, Vevo is now the biggest music video website on the web. More music videos are downloaded from Vevo than they are on YouTube. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? I mean, just think about it. Vevo, bigger for music videos than YouTube, and in the first 2 years of already, they make $1 billion a year from the advertising underneath it. So it makes you think. How many of you know of an American band called the OK Go's? Fantastic videos. You don't know them? He doesn't know the OK. This guy's, your life will be enriched If you see some OK Go's videos, they're incredible. They're made very much a Swiss style. Because these guys who make these videos, well, I can't tell you about the video, but trust me, these videos are great. And the videos get a lot of downloads. And something like the OK Go's, there are people in North Korea who've downloaded those videos. Well, they can't really download them officially. But the point I'm trying to make is, what's happening is creativity is now spreading much more widely than ever before. So if we got nearly 5.5 billion mobile phones, and we look at the growth in the internet, and of course, wireless devices like, let me just show you, I'll just pull one out here quickly. Where is it? Someone took it. No, it's still here. So this here is an interesting little thing. See, it's a BlackBerry. Just came out last week. Really cool. And you know what one of the most successful apps on this device is? An app from Finland. Finland. What kind of country is that? 5.3 million people. Smaller than Switzerland. But there's a guy called Michael Head in Finland. Do you know what he invented? No? Angry Birds? Anyone ever heard of Angry Birds? Incredible. Angry Birds, 1 billion downloads. 1 billion downloads of Angry Birds. Those guys in Finland, you think to yourself, what is there to do in Finland other than to get depressed, drink vodka, and commit suicide? Well, actually, that's not true, because Finland is an incredible country with incredible people, incredible education system, said to be the best in the world. And these guys from Rovio, which is the name of the company, Angry Birds, created this game. How many of you have played Angry Birds? I don't believe it. 4 people in this entire room. That can't be right. Did you, sir, did you play Angry Birds yet? Never. Hey, girls, we've got to get this guy fixed up here. He doesn't watch the OK Go's. He doesn't listen to see Angry Birds. Your life is very poor. There's some girls, there are 2 beautiful girls sitting just over there. They know exactly what to do with you. But the thing is this. The reason I mention Rovio and Angry Birds is this. You should just download the game for one reason and one reason only. If you like music, listen to the audio and the sounds on Angry Birds. It's brilliantly produced. It's clever. It's really interesting. When you hear it, you think, wow, that's just an interesting way that they've used the architecture of sound. Okay, we digress. Finland, great. Nokia, not doing so good, but great thinking that leads to something. How many games do you think that Rovio, the Angry Birds company, made before they hit with Angry Birds? 0? No. Any more? You said 12? Thousands? No, that would. I've told you millions of times not to exaggerate. It was their 42nd game. So think about it. Game number 1, nothing happens. Game number 12, nothing happens. Game number 33, nothing happens. Game number 41. These guys go to church every day saying, please. The 42nd game, bingo. These guys are going to make $1 billion out of that game. $1 billion. Think about it. They get 70% from every download on iTunes on the iPhone. They get 70% for most of the downloads, and those downloads are selling for $4 or $5 US a time. But we digress. Let's get back to some interesting stuff. How many of you agree with that statement on the screen? Correct. Exactly. Faster than anything in history. But this is the key about this whole talk, and why I'm hoping that at least you'll be a little bit stimulated to see the potential of what you can do with music and entertainment and technology. Because now people really want to get something that is cool. And I know everyone here in this hall is absolutely cool. In fact, you are uber cool. So, what do we mean by that? We mean is that there's always a two-way today with a mobile phone, with an iPad, with a tablet, Two-way is the way that things work best, where there's a connectivity and something that gives you something back. Two-way. No question about that. Here's a TV phone from LG. It's a little bit old now, and in fact, Samsung just came out with a new device at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona just 4 weeks ago. They came out with a new little tablet called the Galaxy Note and the Galaxy S. When you look at this, this is HD television right there in your hand. Really amazing. Do you like the technology of what's on the screen here? Doesn't look like technology, does it? Well, you know, funnily enough, it is. Because inside those Nike shoes is special technology that talks to your mobile device. So when you're running, you can set on your mobile phone with your Nike shoes so that you can see how your training is coming along every day or every week. But Nike now have got a special division that looks at developing technology to enhance their products. So, for example, a Nike shirt that recognizes the way you run and that you breathe and sends a text message to your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend to say your heart rhythm is going really good and you really are running and you're not in the pub having a drink. Here's an interesting pen. Look at all the things that pen can do. You write on a piece of paper, automatically it gets transferred and translated onto your computer or onto your mobile phone or onto your tablet. Interesting. Smart pen. So can you imagine if you were Chris Martin from Coldplay? You thought of a lyric in the middle of the night, you woke up, you wrote it down, and you woke up in the morning, went into the studio, the lyrics on the computer. That's a cool idea for a songwriter. Here's an interesting thing. How many of you have difficulty sleeping at night? I mean sleeping. Okay, there's a woman. I must introduce you to this guy here. You will have no problem sleeping with him. I can tell you that. No, but seriously, jokes aside, this device here, you put these headphones on your head, and when you wake up in the morning, you will have a readout on your iPad or your mobile phone that shows you when you had the least sound sleep, where your sleep was most disturbed. So effectively, this Zeo device helps you just determine when you might not be sleeping well. And it's happening while you sleep. You'd love it. Okay. Here's a picture of someone going through security at Los Angeles Airport, because they've now got these big devices. You can see pretty much everything. Well, not everything, but it's just the way that technology is really getting more and more into what we're doing. So if you look at this picture of the dragon, and obviously if you look at this quote by Mark Zuckerberg, and of course in about 4 weeks' time, he's going to be worth about $22 billion when Facebook goes public. But just think about it. Just like Bill Gates, he drops out of Harvard, and Facebook now is approaching 1 billion users worldwide. How many of you here in this hall are not on Facebook? Are not on Facebook? 1, 2, you on Facebook? He's on Facebook! Give him up, yeah, well done. Oh, good. I feel so much better. Oh, good. Okay, well, we're on the right track. Okay. Twitter is now over capacity. We spoke about a tweet that's got a certain URL inside the tweet. But Twitter is expanding like crazy, because you know why? Someone living in Malaysia has the biggest per capita usage of Facebook in the world. There are only 20 million people in Malaysia, maybe a few million more, I'm not exactly sure. But of those 20 million, more belong on Facebook than in any other country per capita. And with tweets in different languages, one of the big things that's very important in the modern age for entertainment, for music, but for technology, is colloquial contextual relevance. And I'm going to tell you about contextual relevance in a minute, about how songs can have a much bigger impact if you use colloquial contextual relevance. How many of you have played Farmville, Cityville, Gagaville, Zynga? How many of you know Zynga? Great company. Mark Pincus, the guy who started Zynga. You know why they called the company Zynga? That's the name of his dog. Not a bad name for a company. I mean, Lindt, name of a chocolate company. It's not the name of the guy's dog in Lindt, right? But anyway, the gamification of things is becoming very, very important. How many of you here use Foursquare? Nobody? No, it can't be. Nobody uses Foursquare? Who knows what Foursquare is? Okay, Foursquare was started by two guys in New York who loved going drinking in the bars of New York. But what they wanted to do was to tell their friends where they were drinking, and they also wanted to see who would go to which bar the most. And so they came up with this idea using gamification that allows you to tell your friends where you are, and then if you go to a place more than anyone else, you become the mayor of that place. So let's say, for example, here at Moods, the little stage in the room next door there, if you went to Moods more than anyone else and you were sending a Foursquare message, you'd become the mayor of Moods right here in this building. Nearly 1 billion people are now involved in some form or another with check-ins on Foursquare. Just amazing. But gamification, using the best examples of the way video games work, but in a social context. And that's what I mean by social lubrication. So we're moving from copying everything to access to everything. So how many of you have actually played around with Spotify? What do you think of it? Yes? No? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? Thumbs up, sort of? You're on the fence? Not surprised? Okay, so Spotify started by Daniel Ek in Stockholm. So where does Daniel Ek come from? Can he play guitar? No. Can he play the drums? No. Can he understand data? Absolutely. Does he like drinking? Absolutely. How could he develop something that gets him involved in data and gets him involved in having fun and good times? And he was the guy that came up with a fantastic, simple, but innovative idea. And what was the idea? The idea was people want to share and exchange playlists. Simple idea. Why didn't anyone ever think about it before Spotify? I mean, when you think about it, it's an unusual idea. So Spotify, 10 million users in Scandinavia, just started in Germany 2 weeks ago. In the United States, they've got about 3 million users, climbing up. Daniel and his team now got a lot of really experienced music people in the team. Spotify is changing the way that the business works. And who owns Spotify? Well, Daniel Ek and his shareholders, the richest man in Hong Kong, who also owns Früh, the big network, and the 4 major record companies own 18% of Spotify. Because the record companies realized that if they could be part of Spotify and Spotify took off, like Vivo took off, that could be really interesting. And it's not just in media that people are sharing things. A young transportation economist in Boston said, to own a motor car, you have to have a garage, insurance, service, you got to keep it clean. Why don't we just share cars and just do it online? So she started something called Zipcar. It's now all over America. You can get a car cheaper than Hertz or Avis or 60. And you see the bicycle there on the right. The mayor of London introduced these bikes into London. Similar things have been done in Paris and Barcelona, all over Europe. You go online, you enter your credit card, and then you can take a bike from maybe one of 200 different locations all over London. They're called Boris bikes, after Boris Johnson, the mayor of London. But this is part of sharing rather than copying. Okay, so here's some fantastic innovation. Who knows what that is on the screen? No, it's not the tattoo of one of the Red Hot Chili Peppers on his arm. But everybody in this audience has actually got that inside you. That's the human genome, which was Dr. Craig Fenter, the American scientist. You will be able to analyze your own DNA sequencing for probably less than 700 euros within the next 3 or 4 months. When this first started, when they did the first one, it was something like a few $1 million to get your DNA looked at. But this is all part of innovation. Can you imagine if you are like Sergey Brin, one of the founders of Google, and he finds that he's got a gene after he did one of these analytical tests of his DNA, that he might get Parkinson's disease when he's in his 60s. So now what can he do now, knowing that he might get a bad disease in 25 years' time? Well, now at least he knows which gene, and maybe with all his money, he would be able to do something that gets him to not get that disease. How many know what this is? Yay, Schweiz! Very good. Switzerland. Of course, it's the CERN project, and just trying to capture the atom, see whether Einstein was correct or not correct. And of course, just incredible that this is based here in Switzerland, and clearly some incredible science will come out of this. Who knows what science will come out of this that helps us in the entertainment business? Some say impossible, never, 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 never. But who knows? Sometimes really incredible ideas can come from really something unusual. So now let's say, for example, you're a band, you send in your tape, someone likes the tape, and you want to be able to have something that allows people to also automatically just take a picture of your CD but get something sent to you. You can now get these peel-off special stickers with a radio frequency that could make your CD or could make your anything really have some kind of radio frequency and some kind of connectivity. It's happening to homes. Of course, Switzerland, many cities in Switzerland are already neutral, carbon neutral. And of course now Google pioneered a way that you can drive from San Francisco to LA, 400, 600 kilometers, 700 kilometers, with no driver in the car. You can sit in the back, you press a button saying LA, Los Angeles, and the car will drive on its own. It sounds incredible, doesn't it? That a car can drive on its own for 700 kilometers. Can you imagine driving into the mountains here just near Zurich in a car that's got no driver in the front? You can just sit in the back, you can watch your iPad. It'll be incredible. Who would have thought of that 5 years ago? So these are the new generatives that generate interest and generate audience and generate revenue for you. It has to be immediate. That's what screenagers want. It has to have personalization, that you can really personalize it to yourself, like Spotify does with playlist sharing of your playlist with your friends. It has to be authentic. NBH. You know what NBH stands for? No bullshit here. Authentic. Very, very important. It's got to be authentic. It's got to get attention. It's got to be easy for interpretation. It's got to be accessible. And it's got to be findable. People say the greatest thing that Google did for the planet was they made search a really important piece of thinking. So How do you compete with free if you're a band or you're a musician or you're a TV producer or a movie producer? Each of these boxes you see in this screen really give you some idea of what is needed to make something successful in today's iTunes-like world. Do people like the brand? Is it timely? Is it contextual? Meaning, if you live in Zurich, or if you live in Basel, or you live in Bern, you are more likely to like something that is contextually relevant to what you do in your country or your city. And talking about contextual, how many of you, did you say, are songwriters here in the audience? 1, 2, 3, few, 4 or 5. Okay, let me ask you songwriters a question. How could you imagine if you wrote a song in Schweizerdeutsch, but let's say, do you write in English or in Schweizerdeutsch? In English? Not in Swiss German, too small an audience? Okay, let's say you write in English. Can you imagine when you did your song, if you could have the lyric in 40 different languages? Russian, Portuguese, Mandarin, Hindi, Tamil, Zulu, Xhosa. 7.
Hindi, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, French.
Who's the publisher in the back row? You've got to sign the songwriter immediately. She can write in 7 languages. Wasn't there a publisher at the back there? No. I think he's left. See, that's the problem with modern day publishing. He should have heard this lady talking. She could be writing something in Mandarin. But seriously though, contextual, colloquial relevance. A few months ago, I went to Troy Carter, who's the guy that manages Lady Gaga. I said, Troy, here's a great idea for you. Born This Way. Great song. Everyone knows that song, right? Born This Way? No? Yes? No? Yes. I said, why don't you arrange to get that song by Gaga done in Hindi? There are only 1.2 billion people in India. There are only 100 million on the internet, but there are 900 million mobile phone users. He said, how do we do it? Well, this is how you do it. Born This Way, we get the production stem of the song from the producer. We take that production stem, we go to Bombay in India, Mumbai. We find a lyricist that can write a lyric in Hindi that is as close to Born This Way as we can get it. We then find a singer who takes the Hindi lyric and the original production stem of the track and does the Hindi version of the Hindi lyric singing against the track. We then take Lady Gaga's voice and we digitally wash her voice over the Hindi playback singer. And what's the net result? It's not Milli Vanilli. It's Lady Gaga singing in Hindi in a very, very believable way. So the manager, Troy Carter, said, we can't do that. It'll make us exactly like Milli Vanilli. I said, no. That's the wrong approach. You're not being innovative enough. Lady Gaga knows how to be innovative because she always does everything in 3s. How do you get fashion, music, and social media combining together? If you do that with Hindi, it's like a dance remix for the Indian market. So why I said to you that there's a possibility now that you can record in 40 languages, can you imagine to some kid in India who loves Lady Gaga hearing Born This Way in Hindi and then gets an app for their phone where they can sing in Hindi with Gaga singing in Hindi? Do you know what that app would sell? You could probably sell 1 million or 2 million apps because people want to be able to have contextual, colloquial relevance. By the way, that's real. That technology exists. It's in New York. Those of you who are interested, like this songwriter here who writes in 7 languages, Mandarin as well, think of it like this. There's one telco in China It's like the Swisscom of China. Do you know how many subscribers they have? 650 million. So can you imagine if you did one of your songs in Mandarin and you could get it done in Mandarin and suddenly people thought, wow, we love this song, you might sell a lot of songs. So we've got to start rethinking the business thinking around entertainment and around music and around devices, because if you look at those 4 boxes at the bottom of that slide, that gives you a very good sense of the key things you have to be aware of. How many of you practice any of those 4 boxes in what you do professionally right now? Not one? Yes. Makes sense, no? Sure it does. Okay, we'll just switch the thinking just for a minute. Anyone recognize what that is on the screen there? Suggestions? It's not a soccer field. Any suggestions? No? It's not a hospital. It's a nightclub, actually. But it's a virtual nightclub. Because as you know, virtual goods, the selling of virtual goods, like in Second Life or Habbo Hotel. Anyone heard of Habbo Hotel? That's from Finland, smart guys from Finland. Well, this nightclub was actually sold online. Someone bought it for $600,000. It's in a very, very important game, certainly in North America, called Entropia. I mean, this guy had more money than brains, as you can see, because, to buy a virtual good, what have you got to show for it? You just got to show for it on a virtual game. But nonetheless, this is one of the lessons of immediacy. Someone wants something immediately. Give me a virtual sword. Give me a virtual piece of a nightclub. Give me a virtual hotel like Habbo Hotel. And Habbo Hotel, those of you that don't know Habbo Hotel, you basically go to a hotel, you buy a room, you buy the furniture. If you want a nightclub in your room, you can have it. If you want to have a waterfall in your room, you can buy it. And you pay Habbo Hotel for these virtual goods. Well, they've got about 60 million users worldwide. Habbo Hotel. Who knew? Now, the sale of virtual goods was more than $2 billion in the United States in 2011. They say it's going to grow to nearly $3 billion in 2012. Who would have thought of that 5 years ago? It's impossible. You think, a virtual good. Can you imagine Roger Federer, a virtual tennis player? You could buy his virtual tennis racket. Actually, if anyone knows Roger Federer's phone number, please give it to me, because I'm going to call him after this and say, Roger, time to sell some virtual tennis rackets. You never know. Okay, so here's an interesting area. How many of you have heard of augmented reality? Augmented reality, very important new area, and an area that's going to become increasingly important going forward. And let me explain to you how it works. How many of you have been to Amsterdam? Everybody, yeah. But how many of you have been to Amsterdam looking to rent a new apartment? Okay, let's just say you meet a nice Dutch girl and you want to go to Amsterdam. You can take your mobile phone, you look through the mobile phone at the canal. In yellow, in black, on the yellow at the top right, it says Zoek woningen, looking for a home. The alternate reality shows you which homes are available. It's actually done by GPS, auto location, showing where you are, and then taking data showing what links into your particular GPS view. You're going to see a lot of augmented reality over the next 12 months. There are some companies in Switzerland that are working on this, and probably the best example of augmented reality is from a British company. You can look them up on the web. Their name is Aurasma, A-U-R-A-S-M-A. But what you're going to see is more of this kind of augmented reality, like this here. You'll be driving just near the tower, this big tower building here near Hardbrücke station. And let's say, for example, you were driving past on your way here to m4music, and you want to see which apartment was for rent, which office space was for rent. You would just look through your phone. You'd look like this, and it would show you all those extra elements. Now, can you imagine if you were at a rock concert, seeing your favorite group, and you put up your camera like that, and it says, Coldplay are on stage. Would you like an early remix of the track that they're playing now? And would you like a live recording of what you're seeing delivered to your phone as you're walking out the building? Do you think that's imaginary, or do you think that that's possible? It's absolutely possible. It's happening now. And funnily enough, it's happening in some countries where you would never expect it. Brazil, Sweden, and the UK, of course. Here's that car that drives itself, just to give you some kind of idea. If you wanted to not drive with your mother-in-law and just sit in the back and let the car drive itself, very good. And here is an incredible piece of innovation that is really going to become more visible and more evident during the course of this year. It was developed at MIT in Boston, and this is all to do with gesture-based technology. So you trigger something by moving your hands. So you can see this guy in the bottom right, bottom left. He's got a camera on his chest. On each of his fingers, different colors that are recognized by the camera. He's got a projector. He's got the color markers. What you're seeing there, the newspaper that he's got in his hand, when you get a newspaper in the morning, that news is already old. How would you like on that same newspaper, when you pick it up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, to see a new news story on the paper? That's what he's doing. But what's even more amazing is here he is making a phone call on his hand. Now, how is that possible? Making a phone call with a gesture on the hand. Well, of course, it's the markers on his fingers, it's the projector, it's all being recognized, and that data is being drawn in, and he can effectively use gesture-based. How many of you have got an Xbox and Kinect? Not one person here. I don't believe it. I thought you guys were hip. Okay, so Xbox is going to be employing a lot of this kind of gesture technology. How many of you have worked on a Wii before? Done a workout on a Wii? So that same kind of thing is gesture-based technology. This is just, girls, if you are not all that happy about the way your jeans fit you, you can get in touch with Levi's and they'll make it specially to order for you. You just send them the data, because it's data really that drives everything. And this is my favorite example. Why I want to show this to you is that all of those plastic pieces that you see there were all made on a printer. How many of you have actually seen a 3D printer before? Okay, so in Switzerland, obviously this is not new, and in fact, you get on the computer, you make a design, you press a button like you would a normal laser printer. Instead of printing on paper, it prints for real the actual product or whatever it is that you've designed. And in fact, for me, the best example of this, you see that car? That car was made on a 3D printer. It's a big printer, obviously. It's an industrial-sized printer. I've actually been in the car last year, last February, at the TED conference. How many of you are familiar with TED.com? The TED conference, that car was there. You could actually sit in the car, drive it around. I said to the guy who put the car together, how did you get the body made so that it works? He said, well, we just used a 3D printer, industrial size, and we printed the shell of what that car is. So with all of these examples I've been trying to show you, just to give you some sense isn't it incredible that some of these ideas 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago, someone said to you, that idea, what have you been smoking? What is that? But these are the new drivers that are going to help the entertainment business, the music business, the music publishing business, and the concert business. But of course, there's one thing that you cannot just make up with technology, and that is creativity. And creativity about music, the right lyrics, madame, the right guitar phrase, so that the guitar sounds really good and really original, the right kind of beats. All of those things can't rely on technology. That's got to rely on your own intuition, what stimulates you, and maybe sometimes a good or a bad relationship. How many times have songs come out that have actually been a tribute to a great relationship? But that brings us to one of the great icons, and someone that I'm pleased to say that I'm working with at the moment. So Madonna's been around for some time, and when we started out about a year ago, we were trying to come up with interesting new ways where Madonna could do something cool with her new album. The new album is coming out next week. It's called MDNA. How many of you here know what MDMA is? He's taken it. No? Your mother's taken it. MDMA is the name for ecstasy. It's the pharmaceutical name for ecstasy. So Madonna always likes to be provocative. She called her album MDNA. Not bad, clever. She always does things that push the edge a bit. So what she also did was she worked with some important dance music producers, including the Swedish House Mafia. And she realized that she would have to do something that's very contemporary and very much in a dance kind of style. And of course, the one great thing about Madonna, in all of the years that she's been successful, she's the most successful female in the history of the music business. Over 40 number ones. 40 number ones, hard to do that. But she's got a sound on her new album that is exactly the kind of style that people like David Guetta, Skrillex, Tiesto, Cascade, all of these hot dance DJs are playing. And then she also felt that what she wanted to do was, she hadn't been on the road for a few years. She wanted to get back out on the road. Look at these numbers and look what she's done. Just in the last, it's 9 years, 8 years. So if you look at the money that she earns, she's one of the biggest earning artists in the world. And starting at the end of May, she's going to 55 cities. She's coming to Zurich. She's playing a big stadium here in Zurich on the 18th of August. So she's got this big show. One of the things she wanted to do was to have a special campaign to try and find the best dancer in the world. How can you find the best dancer in the world? Over 200 countries. How are you going to start? Maybe use social media? Well, what she did was, she went to Smirnoff, the vodka company, and Smirnoff have had a campaign called Night Event for a number of years. They decided to run a competition, 50 cities on the same night, looking for the best dancer in the best club in those 50 cities. Of the 50, they filmed it all, and they've chosen the 10 best dancers, and in about a week or two's time, the 10 dancers are being flown from all over the world to New York City, and Madonna's choreographer will choose the best. And that dancer will be dancing in Madonna's show when she comes to Switzerland. But then we thought, hey, Madonna, why don't we record some of your songs in 40 languages? Why don't we do them like we spoke about before, of recording in Mandarin? Things take a little bit longer to get decisions from Madonna because she's always so busy, but she's got a very, very smart manager who's really right at the forefront of everything that's happening. And so this is something that we are working on. But the most important thing about Madonna is, some people say that she's a chameleon. because she just knows what trend is coming next. And it's very, very hard as an artist to be sure of yourself and sure of knowing what's coming next. It's very, very few that can anticipate the trend in the right way. But just think about it. There she is. One of the things that's happening on this 55-city tour all over Europe, Eastern Europe, the United States, Canada, Latin America, Australia, she's now got a following that have been behind her for the last 30 years. But the one thing about her is consistent. When you hear a Madonna single, you always recognize her voice, and the song has always got a great pop sensibility. Here's a picture of the other great lady that has really changed the face of entertainment. Of course, you know that the dress she's wearing in that slide is made from beef from Switzerland. I'm pleased to tell you that there's some cows just near here, near Zurich, that were taken to New York, and they sliced the cow. It's Swiss meat that she's wearing there, I can tell you that. I know this gentleman told me he recognized it when he saw it. But anyway, the reason I show you this slide, and not to be flippant and not to be too satirical, is that this really represents what Gaga has done so well in the modern day audience of capturing social media, fashion, and music. She wore that going to the MTV Video Awards in New York. Can you imagine walking into the building in a dress made of meat? It wasn't new. There was an owner of an art gallery in Manhattan in New York some 20 years ago that had got a meat dress made for the opening of the art gallery. But Gaga turned it into something completely different and turned it into a way in which there was so much noise on the internet when she wore that dress. Everything that she does, you should just make a note from now on. When you see something that Lady Gaga does in the big public domain, you can be sure that it's capturing fashion, music, and technology all in one. You know, she calls her fans her little monsters. So she just started a Little Monsters platform for all the little monsters to join. It's like her Facebook. She's got 40 million followers on Facebook. She's got 17 million followers on Twitter. And now she's got about 5 or 6 million little monsters that are on her own Little Monsters platform, littlemonsters.com. She's a genius. So she's a business guru and a social media genius, and she's a brilliant, brilliant musician. I don't know how many of you have ever heard her playing the piano without all the pop stuff that she does, but her voice, she's got a great range, and man, can she play? She plays the piano just great. So, can you make euros with your music or your DJ style? It's up to you. One thing I can guarantee you is if you use really cool innovation, cool technology, and stuff that gives you social lubrication, you will be able to make not only a lot of euros, but you'll be able to have a lot of fun. After all, if Roger can do it by having fun with what he does, why not you? Thank you very much.